My brother, Ethan Tan, had a journal where our parents meticulously documented every step of his growth, each page overflowing with their love. Me? I only had a ledger of debts, a sum of 380,000 yuan to be paid off within 5 years. It itemized everything, from large sums like my tuition fees to small ones like 3 hawthorn candies. Later, I paid off every single penny of that debt, but they clung tightly to a wasteful son and lost their most capable daughter. One day, I accidentally saw the journal where my parents had recorded Ethan's milestones, and a flicker of hope ignited within me. I wanted to see if there was a journal for me. Would it contain their love and affection for me? After all, I had always been well-behaved and considerate, bringing honor to the family. Every year, I topped my class and eventually became the valedictorian of my university entrance exams. Surely, my records would be even more detailed and brilliant than my brother's. But I searched and searched in my room for a very long time, until I finally found an old, worn notebook in a remote corner of the bookshelf, its cover simply bearing the words, Tianna Tan. No heart shapes, no cute drawings, no cheerful cartoon stickers, just my name written in pencil. A wave of disappointment washed over me, but I tried to compose myself, telling myself, I'm the older sister, I don't need those childish things. An older sister should be simple and dignified, not competing with her younger brother. Maybe there are other surprises inside. Thinking this, I eagerly opened the first page. But everything was not as I imagined. There were no surprises, no joy. The first page didn't have a picture of me as a baby, nor a few lines of congratulations on my birth. Instead, it listed the money my mother spent during her pregnancy with me, the delivery costs, the tonic expenses during her confinement, every single penny meticulously recorded. The next pages detailed the cost of raising me from ages 1 to 3, and the monthly income my mother calculated she lost by staying home to care for me. At the bottom of the third page, a chilling line read, When Tianna Tan turns 18, she must repay the full amount. The fourth page recounted how, in kindergarten, I accidentally spilled a pot of rice in class, costing my mother 200 yuan. Another entry was for cheap toothpaste, bought because of a burn. I pulled up my sleeve. The scar on my shoulder was still there, a lasting mark from the untreated burn. I remembered the pain, how I tried not to cry, hoping my mother wouldn't scold me. I just wanted her to praise me for being strong, but she merely looked at the array of toothpastes on the shelf and chose the cheapest tube. My heart ached, but I still wanted to read on. I wanted to know just how coldly my parents could treat me. My brother was born when I was 4. Back then, they still had some conscience. They didn't make me bear the cost of his birth. But 2 years later, a small sum appeared in the ledger that to me was incredibly glaring. Hawthorn candy, 1.5 yuan. Note, 3 pieces. I laughed bitterly. In my entire life, I had only eaten hawthorn candy once. Back then, I cried and knelt, begging my mother for it. Thinking back, I can't understand why I craved it so much, enough to kneel, casting aside all dignity, just to have a taste. When I took the first bite, a sour taste burst forth, but I forced a smile and said, Sweet Mom, it's so delicious, the best I've ever had. Ironically, it was the candy my brother had discarded. He'd eaten half a piece, complained it was sour, and thrown it to my mother. My mouth watered with desire. I begged my mother for a lick. She ignored me, eating and savoring each piece until only the last 3 remained. Desperate, I plopped down, kneeling before her. I remember her gaze vividly. She looked at me like I was trash. It's just one hawthorn candy, Tianna Tan. What kind of older sister is as greedy as you? Then my mother stood up, kicked me away, and threw the remaining half of the candy onto the table. Naively, I thought she loved me too much to finish it, so she saved some for me. I divided those 3 pieces of candy and ate them over 2 days. Even though they were so sour my teeth tingled, I insisted they were sweet and boasted to my friends. My mom bought them for me. Reading this, I couldn't take it anymore. Trembling with rage, I grabbed the ledger and stormed into the living room. I wanted to ask them why they treated me differently from my brother. We were both children of the Tan family. How could they be so unfair? Even if I only realized their favoritism later, this ledger was even crueler than mere favoritism. Entering the living room, I saw my mother carefully selecting one-on-one tutoring classes for Ethan. He had never been good at studying, partly because he was spoiled by our parents. I had once offered to teach him, but they claimed I had bad intentions, fearing I would deliberately teach him wrong. They preferred to spend 200 yuan per session hiring an outsider rather than letting me, the top student in my grade, tutor him. I remembered a few months before the university entrance exams, my English wasn't improving. My teacher warned me that without improvement, it would be difficult to get into my dream university. I pleaded with my mother to enroll me in an intensive course. As expected, she refused. She would rather buy a pair of basketball shoes for my brother than spend money on my extra classes. In the end, I had to study all night by myself, using the most naive methods to get through. Watching my mother meticulously choose classes for Ethan, my heart ached again. Perhaps noticing my prolonged silence, she glanced over, her voice curt. "What are you doing? Did you come back to watch your brother's circus act?" She was always like that. No matter what I did, as long as I appeared, she'd think I was an outsider, a wicked person secretly plotting to harm my brother. My efforts were taken for granted, while I myself was treated with suspicion, as if I were a thief. Yet I once tried to prove that I loved them, that I had no ulterior motives. Until this ledger appeared, it was like the last straw that broke the remaining bit of filial piety in my heart. I threw both ledgers down in front of my mother, a beautiful one full of stickers for my brother and a crude one containing only my debts. I choked back tears. "Mom, why do you treat me like this? What did I do wrong? If you didn't want me, why did you give birth to me? This is more cruel than suffocating me at birth." My mother immediately snatched up my brother's ledger, carefully wiping away every speck of dust. Only then did she stand up and slap me fiercely. "Do you think I wanted to give birth to you? If that fortune teller hadn't said you were a boy, I would have aborted you in the womb. Who knew you'd be a girl? I said I wouldn't raise you, but the doctor wouldn't take you back. Fine, you're grown now, you've gotten into university." The ledger clearly states a total of 380,000 yuan. "I'm giving you 5 years to pay it all back. For a smart student like you, it shouldn't be difficult." My hope at that moment was like an icy, heavy stone at the bottom of a well. I wiped my tears, clenching my fists. "Fine, I'll pay. Once it's paid, we'll consider ourselves to have no further connection." My mother glared at me, then looked at the tutoring flyer with eyes that saw me as trash. "Get out. I've been hoping you'd cut ties with me sooner." I was only a freshman in university. 5 years to pay back 380,000 yuan was beyond imagination. They wouldn't send living expenses anymore. This meant I had to support myself and save money simultaneously. Difficulty upon difficulty, but I had no choice. That 380,000 yuan was a shackle, my self-respect, and my reason to escape this house. I had asterisked to pay it. My roommate was surprised. I had only gone home for one trip, yet I seemed to have transformed into a different person. I was frantically searching for part-time jobs. I had no intention of hiding a family like that. What was there to protect their reputation for? So, crying, I told her everything. After crying my fill, I composed myself. Work was work, but studies still had to continue. 380,000 yuan was indeed hard to earn. But I would earn it little by little. There would be a day when I paid off this debt of upbringing. From that day, I started tutoring. My students ranged from high school seniors preparing for university entrance exams to 3rd and 4th graders just learning addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Perhaps because of my patient nature since childhood, no matter how stubborn a student I encountered, I remained calm, making the children sit still and use their brains. By the end of my 3rd year of university, I had saved 100,000 yuan. Compared to 380,000, it was still a long way off, but every bit I paid was something. During New Year's, I took time off to go home, planning to give them a portion of the money up front. To my shock, the first thing that greeted me upon arrival was my old room, now transformed into a cozy love nest for Ethan and his girlfriend. When I appeared, Ethan was still buried in the girl's chest, unwilling to move. It wasn't until she cleared her throat a few times that he finally lifted his head. His eyes held no trace of respect for me. Then, suddenly, he kicked the door shut. I stood frozen in the hallway. Turning back, I saw my father sitting on the balcony, drinking tea with some friends. He looked completely relaxed, as if he hadn't seen me at all. It was just like when I was little, and he pretended to be blind and deaf, ignoring me when my cousin molested me. My mother was in the living room, eating fruit and watching TV. She shot me a cold glance and curtly said, "Oh, why are you back here? Didn't you bravely declare you were cutting ties?" Just so you know, not a single penny of the 380,000 can be missing. I couldn't believe they weren't even bothering to put on a family act anymore. Yet, I had foolishly held onto this so-called debt of upbringing for 20 years, only to come back and face them. It wasn't me being unfilial or heartless, they were too heartless. I placed my bank card on the table, turned my back, and left. But not long after I returned to university, the police showed up. They said my family had lost a 180-gram gold necklace. My mother suspected I took it and immediately reported it. The sudden arrival of the police led everyone to speculate about what terrible crime I had committed. My reputation was instantly and tragically twisted. Just as the commotion was at its peak, Chen, who had been dozing at her desk, suddenly slammed her hand down. "What's all this noise about? Don't jump to conclusions before you know the full story. Haven't you ever heard that before? And here you are, top university students, acting like this?" The classroom instantly fell silent. The police stood outside the door. As it was related to a case they couldn't conveniently explain. I grabbed my personal belongings and followed them out of the school gates. Before I could even collect myself, my entire family swarmed forward. My mother said nothing, just delivered a resounding slap across my face. "You wretched girl, I raised you this big and now you dare to steal from me? You've been a thief since you were little and you still haven't changed, daring to take your father's necklace. And that money you gave me the other day, was it from selling the necklace?" Before I could even open my mouth, my father swung another slap. "You trash, so promiscuous and lowly." The school gate was packed with onlookers, their whispers like knives piercing my ears. My parents continued to eagerly slander me. The police were also in an awkward position. "Young lady," one officer said, "you're all family. If you really took it, just say so, or it will be more awkward if we investigate further." I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth, looking directly into his eyes. "I didn't take it. It's your job to find evidence that I stole, not my job to prove I didn't. I need you to restore my innocence. Don't vaguely slander my character because of family ties. And I also want to press charges. These two just hit me in front of the police. I hope you handle it properly and don't dismiss it because they're family." Saying this, I got straight into the police car without looking back. The day I was released, Chen's red Ferrari was already parked opposite the station. She walked up to me, her eyes filled with sorrow and concern. "Been bullied, haven't you? Come on, I've got your back." Then she pulled me into the passenger seat, and as she drove, she explained the whole gold necklace incident. As expected, Ethan had taken it himself to impress his girlfriend. I had returned at just the wrong time, and he had pinned all the blame on me. I remembered back in 9th grade when 2,000 yuan went missing from the house. My mother didn't even bother to ask, immediately accusing me and tearing my room apart. In the end, 500 yuan was found among Ethan's clothes. Knowing who the culprit was, she pretended as if nothing had happened, and I foolishly rushed to console her, saying, "It's good we found the money, don't blame your son." How ridiculous. It turns out I only realized now that I had never been loved. From childhood, it was drilled into my head that I had to pamper my younger brother, help the adults with chores, not feel resentment, and not cry. I had to swallow my tears so everyone would think I was a good child. But no matter how long I played the part, they never loved me. From beginning to end, I was just someone to be looked down upon. They never had any intention of loving me. At this thought, tears involuntarily streamed down my face. I looked over at Chen, who was still furious on my behalf, cursing at my parents. My tears flowed even more profusely. Fortunately, I hadn't been completely abandoned. Behind me, I still had the family asterisk. I chose someone who would protect me. Half an hour later, we stopped below my house. Chen opened the trunk and slung a baseball bat over her shoulder. "Which floor?" I was still caught up in the emotion of having such an amazing friend. She asked again, and I blurted out, 303. She immediately tiptoed in her high heels, clacking straight into the elevator. I snapped back to reality and ran after her, but the doors had already closed. Afraid she would cause a scene, I frantically climbed to the 3rd floor. I arrived just in time to see Chen banging on the door, the sound echoing through the hallway. Neighbors gathered to watch, and security guards arrived. I ran over to grab her arm. "Stop banging. Everyone's watching, you'll lose your image and it'll go viral." She pushed me aside, scanned the surroundings, then loudly recounted the entire necklace incident. Next, she pulled the debt ledger from my bag and read out each itemized expense. Neighbors began to criticize my parents, expressing their indignation on my behalf. When she read the entry for the 3 hawthorn candies, my mother couldn't stand it any longer and finally opened the door. Who are you to interfere in other people's family matters? Chen pulled me into her embrace and declared loudly, I am her sister and her business is my business. As long as the debt isn't fully paid, there's no cutting ties. I have money, not just money, I can use money to crush you. Then she pulled out a card. There's 300,000 yuan in here, I'll pay on her behalf. After saying this, she raised an eyebrow at me as if showing off. Am I cool or what? I knew this amount was nothing to her, but I couldn't accept it for no reason. I tried to give it back, but she didn't give me a chance, pressing my shoulder down and whispering in my ear, Be good, let me support you. Don't make me lose face. In that moment, she was like an angel descending from heaven, shining brightly behind me. With her supporting me, I stood taller than ever before. My mother's eyes lit up at the sight of the money, and she reached out to snatch it, but Chen held it firmly, so my mother turned to her with a dissatisfied look. Chen slightly curled her lip. What are you looking at? Did you think there was extra? Auntie, I'm keeping this extra 20,000 to buy clothes for my sister. Isn't that better? After the money was paid, they stopped bothering me, and I certainly wasn't foolish enough to return and invite more suffering. 2 years after graduation, I finished repaying the 300,000 yuan I borrowed from Chen. That day, as I was leaving her place, she said, It's not that I need this money, but I don't want you to think you owe me. I'll never rush you to pay it back, but I believe with your abilities, 300,000 is just a small sum. Consider it an investment. My judgment of people has never been wrong. She loved to motivate me with challenges, and I was easily swayed by that tactic. So returning to school, I immediately changed my business direction, transforming my student tutoring into an online teaching application. In less than half a year, downloads surpassed 1 million. Once the app was operating steadily, after graduation, I opened my own studio. Chen was right. My capabilities weren't limited to 300,000 yuan, but far exceeded millions. She was the only one who believed in me, and the faces representing the app were mine and Chen's. A valedictorian in natural sciences and a popular young singer among students. At the end of the year, I returned to expand my business, and my former homeroom teacher pulled me aside to talk for over an hour. Besides congratulating me on my current achievements, the rest of the conversation was about the name that gave her headaches, Tianna Tan. She said 3 years of teaching him in high school had drained all her energy. He was a world apart from me back then. His academic performance was out of the question, just his troublemaking was enough to drive her mad. From bullying teachers to intimidating classmates, or skipping classes with his girlfriend to deserted places. The number of times his parents were called was more than the number of awards I received. I just mumbled in response, and she grew more animated in her recounting. Seeing that there was still plenty of time, I sat down to listen to her vent, considering it a review of past grievances. It was quite interesting to listen, especially when I learned that Ethan's university entrance exam scores weren't enough to get into a regular program. Now, he was only attending a mediocre vocational college, still jobless after graduation, and freeloading at home all day. Perhaps because she was a literature teacher, her storytelling was so vivid that even the neighbors gathered to listen. The more I listened, the more I enjoyed it, smiling subtly and nodding along. After the teacher finished, a woman who claimed to live on the floor below my house interjected, pouting and gesturing. She described Ethan constantly asking for money, eating, and then heading to bars until morning. Then she brought up the past incident where Chen caused a commotion in front of my house, causing an uproar online. From then on, my parents and Ethan lost all face in the neighborhood and at school, branded as parents who abused their own daughter and spoiled their son excessively truly inhumane parents. Not only did they lose their jobs, but even the 380,000 yuan I had given them, Ethan squandered it all. Now, wherever my parents went, they hung their heads, only daring to enter and exit the neighborhood in the dead of night or at dawn. People often compared me to Ethan. On one side, a top university graduate, now a businesswoman. On the other, a student from an unknown vocational college, constantly causing trouble, getting into fights, drinking, changing girlfriends like clothes, and notorious for his bad reputation. They couldn't understand how 2 children born of the same mother could be so vastly different. Just as they were speaking, everyone suddenly looked towards a woman wearing a mask, emerging from the residential complex. One woman nudged me, signaling to look closely. When the person stepped into the light, I realized it was my mother. The woman who once held her head high because of me was now hunched over, completely covered, afraid of being recognized. A few neighbors, who weren't afraid to cause trouble, immediately dragged her in front of me, saying sarcastically, "Lily, your capable daughter is back. Why aren't you greeting her? We're family. Even broken bones heal, let alone something that can be fixed with an apology." Yeah, to let a daughter like this leave, I'd be so sad. If you're going to abandon someone, abandon that useless son. I don't understand what you're thinking, being so harsh with your daughter. Do you still hope that wasteful son will show filial piety? They clamored, not letting my mother get a word in. She no longer had her former arrogant demeanor. She forced a faint smile and whispered, "You're back. Come home for a bit, okay?" Hearing her voice, I guessed she was truly terrified by the public's backlash on social media. Chen's fans, both level-headed and numerous, had created a fierce wave after learning the truth. Even the incident where my parents slapped me twice in front of the school gate was dug up again, resulting in each of them being detained at the police station for 10 days. I heard that when they returned, some people still went to their company and home to cause trouble on my behalf, demanding justice. In just half a year, those two arrogant individuals had visibly aged, like birds startled by a bent branch. Even a small sound made them jump. But that useless brother of mine didn't care. He just continued to party, oblivious to how our parents were living or dying. Seeing my mother so frail, I had to admit that I still felt a pang of softness. After all, it was a biological bond of so many years. I couldn't be completely indifferent. But softness was softness, and coldness remained coldness. How they lived now was entirely their own doing. "No, I've already booked a hotel," I said flatly, then bid farewell to the neighbors and my teacher. But before I could leave, someone clutched my sleeve. It was my mother. "Tianna, if you cut ties with your parents, fine, but can you really abandon your brother too? Have you forgotten how much you loved him when you were little?" I coldly brushed her hand away, not bothering to answer. I got straight into the car. She was right. When I was little, I was like a devoted eunuch to an emperor, doting on my brother like a treasure, protecting him to the point of irrationality. But that was because no one loved me. I thought if I loved my brother, they would love me back and praise me for being a good older sister. And what was the result? All the grievances still fell upon me. Even the brother I pampered so much didn't know he was the favored one. He even exploited my love to do whatever he wanted. I remembered one New Year's when my parents took us back to our hometown. My brother and his cousin tricked me out of all my savings, using it all to buy firecrackers. While I was picking vegetables, they threw some firecrackers at my neck. Just 2 seconds later, a series of muffled explosions rang out and fireworks erupted on my back. The pain was so intense that I ran into the room, whimpering and begging my mother, wanting a little affection or at least a comforting hug. But she didn't even bother to look at the burns on my body. She just told me to call Ethan down for dinner, lest he play all day and go hungry. At that time, I was still naive, genuinely worried Ethan was hungry, so I hastily called him to eat. Time and again, I truly believed I was an older sister who loved her brother wholeheartedly. I was willing to do anything for Ethan, from acting like a cow or a pig to a fawning dog. I loved him for so many years, until 8th grade when I met Chen. She said that to be loved, one must first learn to love oneself. Only when you love yourself will others love you back. At that time, I didn't understand. I continued to flatter my parents and pamper my brother wholeheartedly. Later, we both got into the same university. She lived brightly and shined, becoming famous everywhere thanks to her self-composed songs. Meanwhile, I had become someone who liked to please others. In the dorm, there wasn't a moment when I wasn't flattering and catering to this person or that. Chen was so blunt that one time, in front of the entire dorm room, she argued with me. "Do we not have legs or arms that we have to make you go buy food and get water?" I meekly explained. "We're roommates, just helping each other a little." She was so furious she kicked the hot water bottle to the ground. I've never seen anyone so subservient. My face turned beet red then, and my roommates exchanged glances before finding excuses to leave. The air hung still for a few seconds, then she dragged me to the cafeteria. On the way, she said many things, but what I remember most is, "If you love yourself, others will love you back. If you respect yourself, others will respect you back." I had actually heard similar sayings before, but for some reason, only Chen taught me how to truly *do*it. From then on, we became best friends. She trusted me, supported me, and gave me the praise I had longed for since childhood. When others looked down on me or bullied me, she encouraged me to stand up for myself. If you can't talk your way out, fight. If you can't fight, run. Because she was always there behind me. I began to live just like her, becoming the version of myself I admired most. Without her, perhaps I wouldn't have dared to say to my mother, "It's all paid off, so it's over." Because before, I had naively lived in a world where I thought I was loved. I once asked her why she chose me as her best friend. She said, "Back in middle school, even though people criticized me for not focusing on my studies and only following a band, only you stood up for me, praising me as a bright future star. When I became famous, only you stood alone against the entire online world, helping me clear my name from slander. If it weren't for you, I might have given up." On her video account, there was only one pinned photo at the top. A picture of me and her, accompanied by the caption, "We are best friends for life." After we finished discussing business, the day before I was due to leave, my mother came to the hotel where I was staying. She kept pleading with me that I absolutely had to have a meal with the family. At that time, both team leaders were with me, so it was inconvenient to refuse. I reluctantly led them up to a private room on the third floor. The whole family walked in, and the atmosphere at first was incredibly awkward. My father was engrossed in smoking. Ethan was busy playing games, clinging to his girlfriend. I knew this wasn't a normal family meal. Like in movies, I was sure they would plead with me to do something. Whether to agree or not was my choice. My mother was the one to break the silence. She picked up a wine glass. "Tianna, let bygones be bygones. Mother apologizes to you." After saying this, she drained the glass. Then her true intentions became clear. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at me. "You've loved your brother since childhood. How can you stand by and watch him be jobless and unable to marry? You're doing quite well now. Can you introduce him to a good job? The salary doesn't matter. What's important is for him to learn from you." Hearing her words, I could only offer a helpless, bitter smile. Ethan glanced angrily up from his game screen but immediately immersed himself again. I looked directly into my mother's eyes and replied, "Now you're comfortable letting me teach Ethan? Before, I volunteered to help him study and improve his grades, so why did you absolutely forbid it? Have you forgot everything? When a child dies, you hesitate. Snot flows freely, you know. When a pig runs into a tree, you also know. I'm telling you, it's too late." These were a few sarcastic lines I had just heard Chen say a few days ago. She had told me I'd have a chance to use them when I returned. I didn't expect it to be true. Seeing my stubbornness, Ethan finally put down his phone and slammed his hand on the table. "Tianna Tan, isn't that enough from you? You think you're so great now, too good to acknowledge us. You may be smart, but I can't stand you. You're truly an ungrateful child. Our parents love me so much, and you're making them beg you?" I smirked. "That's right, I've grown up. I understand my parents' hardships. It's just that I'm no longer the older sister who would rush to coddle her brother every time he sulked. When I received awards as a child, people said I was a filial daughter, while my brother was a troublesome scamp. Now, it's clear who is who. All the achievements and filial piety I showed them when I was little now held no value. No matter how mischievous he was, how much trouble he caused, in their eyes, he was still the beloved, cherished son. Even if he burned half the kitchen down, he would be praised for knowing how to burn, burning so well. His journal was filled with childhood memories, overflowing with compliments and affection from our parents. Every small matter was exaggerated into an outstanding achievement for their son. Of course, he grew up in that love, so he believed that our parents truly loved him, and naturally, they loved me the same way. But I didn't have that kind of journal. I only had a different one, a collection of numbers, stacking up as layers of hatred. So, on what basis could I still imagine I had a happy family? On what basis could I still treat them kindly? Ethan even brazenly stood on his chair, yelling at me for being unfilial. Even though my parents pulled his arm, his mouth didn't stop. After he finished ranting, his gaming friends called him online, and he quickly sat down to continue playing. The room returned to its initial awkward silence. This time, my father was the one to break the silence. He was usually the authoritative figure in the house, a man of few words, and when he spoke, it was always something important. But now, looking frail and aged, he couldn't utter any sharp words. He took tea instead of wine, raised his cup. "Tianna, be good. Give your father some face, don't cause any more trouble. We're all one family, we should live in harmony. Have you forgotten your childhood promise to be filial to your parents forever? After saying this, he raised his hand and drained half the tea in his cup. I stood up, picked up a clear bottle of white liquor, and walked over to him. Pour 3 cups. For father's face. After you drink it, I'll find a job for Ethan. As soon as I said this, my brother went ballistic again. He grabbed his girlfriend's phone and threw it at me. I dodged, and the phone hit the ground, shattering its screen. His girlfriend was furious but dared not speak, while he yelled, "You think I'm giving you face? That's your father. Don't you know what kind of daughter acts like you?" I ignored him, looking directly at my father. He quickly panicked, drained his cup, and sat there, gasping for breath. Ethan was right. Perhaps there truly wasn't a daughter in this world like me, forcing her own father to drink. But there was also no father like mine. In front of a group of old men, he forced me to get drunk and then threw me into my cousin's room to be tormented, while he and his friends got wasted in the living room. If I hadn't taken the initiative to stab myself 3 times, perhaps today wouldn't just be a simple matter of forcing him to drink. Ethan continued to play his game, and the room fell silent again. At this moment, Ethan's girlfriend, who had been silent the whole time, spoke up. "Sister, I know you've suffered a lot of injustice, but Ethan really has no other way now. If your family can't provide the 60,000 yuan for the wedding dowry, we can't get married. The child in my belly will also be without a father. Can you really bear to let a child of the Tan family be out on the streets?" Looking at her pitiful expression, I couldn't help but laugh. What a coordinated attack. But since she and I had no real enmity, my words couldn't be too harsh. I gently advised her, "So, have you thought it through carefully? Do you really want to marry the man in front of you? I am their biological daughter and they treat me this way. What more can you expect as a new daughter-in-law from outside? Can you guarantee that after marriage, Ethan will be faithful to you, without any outside entanglements? Can you guarantee that your mother-in-law won't be difficult, won't be an evil mother-in-law? Can you guarantee that what happened to me, being forced to drink, being humiliated, won't happen to you? If you've considered all these things, then I wish you 100 years of happiness. As for the dowry, it's only 60,000 yuan. Do you really think they can't provide it? You should inquire a bit. Nowadays, every wedding costs hundreds of thousands. Everyone knows they're forcing the price down because of the child in your belly. My dear, I advise you to open your eyes." After speaking, I grabbed my handbag and quickly walked out. I was afraid my brother would fly into a rage and try to bite me. After returning, I immediately went to see Chen's concert. This was her first live show. I absolutely couldn't miss it. This performance was truly hard-won. Although she had gained some fame over the past few years, investors still believed she lacked commercial value and refused to fund her show. It was I who secretly ran around to more than a dozen companies, finally finding a few owners willing to contribute money to prepare for this concert. I knew she must have known about my silent help, but we had an unspoken understanding. Just like the time I almost went bankrupt, she sold her favorite Ferrari to help me get through that difficult period. Afterward, I noticed she didn't use her car for a long time and guessed the reason. When I managed to get my finances in order, she secretly bought the car back. I am truly lucky to have met Chen. She changed my entire life. We have no blood relation, yet we are closer than any family. I want to help her stand on the biggest stage, win the most awards, become the person she always yearned to be, marry the man she loves most, and have the most perfect life. As for me, from now on, I will only have deep affection for Chen. On the day of the concert, I sat in the audience, tears streaming down my face. They were clearly joyful songs, yet the more I listened, the heavier my heart became. By the last song, the backdrop behind her was no longer shimmering with all sorts of lights as before. Instead, a spotlight shone directly on her chest. There, she held a red notebook, like a certificate of honor, placing it in the most central position. Then she looked directly at me, gently stroking the notebook with her index finger. The cover was adorned with heart stickers and whimsical drawings that I had once both admired and envied. The first page contained a group photo of us from middle school, with red lines marking each person's position. We hadn't even known each other back then. She must have searched for this photo for a very long time. At the top, it read, "The first day I met Tianna Tan. She's so well-behaved, with beautiful eyes and a smile prettier than anyone else's." She continued to turn the pages. Embossed patterns and witty captions appeared. All of them spoke of our deep affection. Every section praised me. Even with many bad, photos, through her descriptions, I appeared truly beautiful. This was the journal I had always yearned for, and now I had it. Turning to the last page, two beams of light shone on us. On the paper, it read, Tianna Tan, having you as a friend is what I, Chen, am most proud of. The large screen suddenly went dark, then displayed the words, Who needs a peaceful harbor? Only sisters and money are the dream. Seeing those words, I burst out laughing with delight, giving her a thumbs up in approval. Exactly. Get rid of that peaceful harbor. Only sisters and money are the best. The journey ahead is still very long, and there are many more stories waiting for us to discover.